We go to the table, I go to the table with CEOs of these companies and hospitals, and they want nurses like, because they need it.
Yeah.
They want it next week,
Right.
but we're like, I can't go get an H1B, or EB3. It's like 10 to maybe 18 months, 24 months, right? And they're like, no way, get out of here.
Right. Yeah.
But then they have to go to the travel nurses that are making $200-$300 an hour.
Yep.
And the patient care has declined. No offense to it. This is just what's the reality.
Right. So what about the licensed vocational nurse utilization in the United States? Underutilized. What are your thoughts there? Is this something that could perhaps bridge a small gap in certain environments, and which environments, if so?
Yeah, the problem with I see with that is that a lot of the LVNs are sectioned off only to skilled nursing facilities and home health.
Right.
They're not allowed to...
Or mental health.
Yeah, they're not allowed to practice as much as an RN is.
Right.
And so there's less and less people going into LVNs.
Right.
So then, there's less and less people going into RN. It's climactic what's happening. And, the shortage is getting bigger, and we're getting older.
You're listening to Musings with Morales. Brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Musings with Morales, and my special guest today, Ernest and Kasaya, longtime friends, colleagues, even business partners at a certain level.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So like I said, longtime friends that I'm not quite sure whether it came from colleague acquaintance to friend or friend to colleague acquaintance, but I remember meeting Ernest 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. I had just opened up my first business, my passion project that I still have today, and Ernest was either contemplating or had just made a move in starting his first baby. Is that right? Was it the first?
That's right. Yeah. It was about 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually,
2015?
Yeah, it was 2015 I came. It was around October 2015 I came here to your office. I just 3 months ago got fired.
Oh, yeah.
Job. Yeah.
That's new.
I got
That's
fired.
new, man.
Yeah, I got fired. So, you when you get fired and you got a house payment and you got,
Yep.
you got, I think I had 3 babies then. So 3 girls.
So how many do you have now?
I have 4 now.
Okay.
This one.
All right.
Yeah, so it may have been 3. Yeah, Gracie was born in 2012, so I had 3 babies, 3 girls. Recently got fired, so I started thinking, looking at things differently, because I've been in the corporate world for decades, helping all these doctors, make millions and millions.
What were you doing at that time, or prior to when you and I met?
I was working for a nephrologist. Yeah.
And you were doing the same thing as you're doing now, but under the umbrella of an organization as their, what was the title, or what is the title that you carry today?
Oh, today today we own our medical billing company.
Medical billing. So you're doing the same thing for a nephrologist in house at that time, and I do know the person.
Yeah.
No need to.
Yeah, exactly.
but I know the nephrologists are in the group. You were billing for this group. They offered nephrology and dialysis services.
They offered both acute and, it was a physician group, big group. So my wife worked for them as well, me and her. But they let me go. They kept her. But then she ended up, moving to DaVita and
so she was doing more billing for dialysis.
She was just a assistant to the administrator for DaVita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So we met. I had just started business. It was going well.
Yeah.
I looked at my LinkedIn one day. I think it was LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken. And it was like, hey, I see you do dialysis. You got a business. You're close. And you came with a laptop. And you started showing me his website and I think a flyer. And I remember how excited you were, man. Can you tell me how that felt at that time? Because I remember how it felt, and so does Paco, when I first started my business. But how did it feel for you?
I don't know if excited was the right word. I think more afraid.
Afraid.
Yeah, because I was looking for you for some answers, kind of seeing how you did it.
I hope I gave you
I think,
one or two.
Yeah, I think you were already you weren't just starting. I think you already started. Yeah.
Had been
2015.
well, yeah, that was 6 years into my business owner journey. And the building we're in now is where I was at. So that was my third building, actually, because we had already upsized over the last, probably the 5 years previous to that.
Yep. Well, believe it or not, Michael, so fast forward, right? Nephrology, I came from nephrology, Grace came from nephrology. But, the most unusual thing is that after, being in business now for 8 years, I have never gotten one single nephrologist to bill for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So two
That's
of my specialties are oncology, hematology, and nephrology.
I remember the oncology.
I have none of those clients. That's right.
That's crazy. And
That's crazy.
We kind of spoke to you shared where Gracie had moved over as far as the billing experience. Dialysis today is much different than it was back at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were billing for that nephrology practice before 2015, there were actually still quite a few independent dialysis facilities that had, one shop or 3 or 4 shops. Today, it's really a few organizations that hold the majority of the dialysis market, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a big difference, and maybe part of the contributing factor of either that or you're just so good on the other areas that it outshined your nephrology billing experience.
Either that or the nephrologists really were hard to get.
He spread the word about you, man.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting. Do you think there's a reason why? I mean, because you're pretty big out there.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to put a negative light on nephrologists, but, they're a different animal.
Oh, okay.
They're a different, they're a different breed of doctors.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
It's
that.
not the most attractive area or specialty in medicine.
Yeah.
From a there are perks, or I should say, there are upsides to being a nephrologist. But it's really because of the finite resources and the entitlement behind reimbursement. It's a tough,
high
area of medicine.
reimbursement. It's high reimbursement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Ernest, we've stayed in contact over the years. We've done like numerous things together, including COVID.
Yeah.
Some interesting projects during COVID. Most recently, I would say a year ago or so, working on a project with you as well. Some merger and acquisition activity. You introduced me to this wonderful person next to you, and it just kind of follows the trend of how we met, and then we later found out we were semi-related, but then he introduced me to you, and you guys are also have familial relation, right? Like,
Yes, we're first cousins.
We're first cousins,
yeah.
Our parents are siblings.
Yeah.
So, because it's been just a shorter amount of time that we've gotten to know each other, but really have you've earned a lot of respect in my book as far
appreciate
as
that. Likewise.
the presentation of your experiences in healthcare, in business, but then just also your genuine purpose behind why you're doing all of this. It shines through really, really strong. Maybe we could start with kind of, a little less than a year ago, us meeting, what sort of priorities were on the plate when Ernest and I got together. Actually, Ernest brought me an opportunity. What were the priorities on the plate at the time that were kind of fulfilling some of the needs in healthcare? And then maybe a little bit about your background and how that kind of just meshed in perfectly with the project that both of us were brought. But Ernest, thank you for always
Absolutely.
sharing opportunities with me.
Yeah. So when I met, I'll talk about when I met you, Michael, because your reputation with my cousin here precedes in a good way. He's like, Michael's coming. He's a great guy. You can learn from him.
It's like, don't tell him. Don't tell him the side conversation.
I won't.
And I remember you were in the room and you're so quiet and just stealth, which is normally it's like a marquee of someone who's interested in kind of ingesting the information and kind of processing. So what brought me to the table that day, other than my cousin, because He's very humble. I'll say that. Very connected. But he always looks on, he's like a dot connector.
Yeah.
So he'll see like pathways that we may not see. Like it would be good for Kasai to meet Michael, or Kasai knows, this person, and, they could, leverage each other's expertise and networks. And so he did that. So actually, my passion project, because I've been mainly corporate, and then I went into, tech and AI with a startup. I had some hard lessons there. In anyone who's worked at a startup and at a high level. So you can't really like bow out when things don't work.
Yeah.
Just because you have like stake and all that stuff.
Right.
So I was kind of going through this moment. And then my passion project was I'm a florist also. So it's like my creative side.
That's right.
Yeah. And so that actually, it's that really kind of formed my mind in a fun way on what it is to be an entrepreneur in like a microcosm in a totally different industry that's less litigious and regulated. But it's still hustle and all the same. And so I was delivering flowers to my cousin for his daughter's birthday, and he's like, "Hey, I met the CEO of this large organization that has nurses, right? And I have now a business partner." And he was like, and we had done business together with like the tech firm and all that stuff, and he's like, maybe it's something to think about. So then we had a call. We brought in our business partner, my colleague, now business partner, and we formed it. We like literally, I jumped in the car with my cousin and Grace's wife, and we went up to San Francisco. We met the CEO of Manpower, the president of Gene Harmonics, and then we're like, hey, we're going to make this happen. My business partner, Dr. Brokers, flew in from Texas, and then it kind of memorialized, and it was because of Ernest. And then to your kind of question was, then I saw you at the table, and it happened so fast. And that's what I've learned, is that when you bring like the right people together, or you have like an architect like my cousin Ernest here from like a dot connector, for lack of a better term, then those things happen quickly.
Agreed.
And it's not because it's luck. It's because you've been at whatever it is you're doing for a good amount of time, and you've kind of gained this, not leverage, but not clout, but this understanding within your group of people, like Michael's going to be here, Kasai is going to be here. And then things happen, because it happened really quickly. Then we formed our business, then our partnerships, and now we're here, and it
Mission Impossible happened pretty quickly after that first meeting. Agreed. And it brings up the saying, and I'm not going to get it perfect, but paraphrase Morales, good ideas take massive action. And I can say that, Ernest, we've worked on a lot of things. You called me pretty recently here and said, this is something special. It's special in many ways, the project itself, but I think the culmination of people is kind of a common theme among the guests that we've had on the podcast so far.
Yeah.
Is there's like these long-lasting relationships that, it's exciting to really think about where they're going to end up. And, you mentioned the nursing, so there was a focus on nursing at that time. My background is really hard dialysis, but has expanded in healthcare into a lot of other areas as well. Ernest, with the billing background, that's, like you said, covers multiple specialties, and then a lot of regulation and the whole coding aspect of it, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So these are kind of different things. Heavy clinical on my side, reimbursement, admin on your side, operations, and when you think about systems and IT, and then getting into AI, the world is changing drastically, right? But let's forget about where we're at today, and then kind of go back, because I only got here because of a very personal connection to what started my healthcare career. You know, it was a family member that needed care that I ended up participating in and never wanted to, but did it. And then, you know, fast forward into adulthood, found out it was what I should be doing and that I'm good at it and that I'm helping people, right?
Yeah.
So it showed me like there's a real purpose, a real calling behind what I'm doing. And you know, professionals like both of you don't just come from like, this is the thing that makes the most money, or this is the thing that's the coolest or the latest trend. So, because when we start with you, like what set it off for you? Why healthcare? Because you've got a heavy emphasis on the IT and the AI, but you've really focused on healthcare. Why nursing? Like, why is this a personal and a passion project for you to continue on this journey?
Oh, yeah, I like that question. Because it's like, yeah, there's the journey to get here, right? Sometimes you fall into things. You're good at something. It's the right people, or you have good mentors. It's a blessing. Sometimes the doors are open to you. So with what we're here together and how we met, it's one, the nursing. A lot of my family, they're nurses. My aunts, they immigrated here because of nursing or the opportunity.
Immigrated from where?
The Philippines.
So, right, you guys are cousins,
Yeah.
so that means you're Filipino.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But so the heart of the matter is, so there's like the business aspect, the operations, there's the things that we could talk about, you know, just in pure business, which is interesting and exciting of it in and of itself. And then there's the heart of the things, which I think is really important. The experience of life and everything is that there's roughly almost 400 million people in the United States. There's only 16,000 hospitals, 16,129, I think, not including like nursing facilities.
Down to the number? Wow.
Yeah, urgent cares. So that's when you look at that, you're like, oh, okay, that's not very many hospitals that have to service a large population.
Right.
And then there's only about in practical application, nurses on the floor, boots on the ground in those hospitals. There's about 3.2 million. That's it. Right? And you Ernest knows, with your school and all that stuff, if we graduated all the nurses right now, it still wouldn't meet the
Wouldn't
need.
be enough.
Yeah.
So the only ways you can expand outside your own, geographical borders. And with the Philippines, it's a passion thing because I'm half Filipino. My dad's Filipino. We're Filipino. Filipinos, it's like in the culture to care, and nursing is like this thing within the Philippines that people are passionate about. They love America. Filipino nurses are just understanding. There's a different bedside manner you get. I think sometimes you can learn some of it, and some of it's just like when you grow up,
Yeah.
It's just
It's nothing to do with nursing. It's
yeah.
and
It's
I
family.
really,
It's family. It's family.
I'm half Hispanic, right? I grew up in a Hispanic household, South American household, and there's like this very warm, caring, concerned, even overbearing in some cases, presence of elders and family, right? And like when I'm married to a Filipina, and then I see the same in her family, is this very ever present, and there's no denying the love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't say no, I don't want it.
Yes.
To family, right?
They're like, we know what's best for you.
Yeah, and I'm just when I think about my experiences in healthcare, but just in life as a whole, and I think about the Filipinos that I've met in my life. And Ernest, we have history before even knowing each other, of knowing common people.
Yeah.
Even in my high school years, I've always had a very strong affinity to the Filipino culture and the Filipino people. So you mentioned the caring, you mentioned the natural instinct towards nursing. It's something that we've seen actually in the dialysis world as well, that a pretty large percentage of the professionals come from the Philippines. It's a beautiful thing, to be able to know that on a professional basis that the bases are covered, but then on the level of care that they deliver is also, at par with the highest level of customer service. So technically, and then emotionally, mentally, like really a great population to work with. Why is that? Like, what exactly is it that makes that in the DNA of the Filipino to care, not just in caregiving, but in life to provide that level of care?
Well, I can speak on that because I did a really deep dive history in the Filipino culture from the 1800s to where we are today. So in the 1800s, we were conquered by Spain. So obviously the Spanish influence was put into there. So for about, from 1896, my dates are off, maybe 1 or 2 years, to about 1904, 1906, we were under Spanish rule. And then we were liberated by the Americans. So from 1904 to about 1912, we were under U.S. territory, believe it or not. So I started collecting coins from that date, from that era. And the coins had the U.S. silver dollar minted in San Francisco. And on the backside, they had the Filipino peso. Interesting. For about, from 1904 to 1912, they minted that. Interesting. And so we were a U.S. colony.
Yeah.
Had they left it alone, we would have been U.S. citizens.
Right.
We wouldn't need to. and then after
wouldn't be a nursing shortage.
Exactly, we wouldn't need nurses. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think then the American culture seeped in, and then obviously during World War II, a Japanese came in. Very short term, though, short-lived, about 2 years. They created the Japanese money, and on the back of it was Filipino. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they made
So the peso had
the peso Japanese,
Japanese?
on one
Oh.
side, Philippine peso on the other.
So you have all these coins?
I have all those
Susanna?
coins. And so I did a deep dive history, and so I think it's all these cultures culminated together, and then obviously the U.S. implanted their base there after World War II.
Yeah.
So they made the Philippines a base between Japan and the South Pacific.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the midway, what they call it, midway from U.S. and midway to Hawaii. So the Philippines became that. And so obviously there's the U.S. Western influence, there's the Spanish influence, there's the Japanese influence, and then there's the Indonesian influence. So I think all of that put together, I think, is what created, who we are today. The different cultures,
Yeah.
but just in general, I think the respect that the Filipinos have.
Yeah.
Even Rex Navarrete makes fun of it, but it's funny. But because when you pass by a TV, you go, "Excuse me, excuse me."
Yeah, it's true.
It's not like Americans just go pass right by, but excuse me, like wait,
even if no one's there.
you're actually blocking it when you do that more than you are.
But because you said excuse me, it's okay.
It's passable, right? I mean, I love when I was teaching classes myself. I'd have a student that is from the Philippines, right, born in the Philippines, schooled in the Philippines, and just the level of respect that they have for their classmates and for their teachers, quite often elders as well, is incredible. But I saw the same level of respect passed to patients as well, as that, like, it's always the highest level. It's I don't want to say overdone, but it's as far as it can go with respect, to the point where people want to tell you, like, call me Bob.
Yeah.
You don't need to call me sir, right?
Yeah.
Call me Bob. But you never get in trouble with that, do you?
No.
Like when you over respect somebody?
You don't.
No.
You don't, right? And I think that's kind of something that maybe we could learn here in the United States from the Philippine culture, is that, like, the overextension of respect and courtesy and the expectation that the way I treat you really provides the highest level of dignity for you. We can miss that a lot of times in the United States culture.
Yeah.
So would you say, Kasaya, that that care, that kind of DNA is what started you with the family of nurses? Is that what
What
turned you
interested
on
me?
towards healthcare, or what, how did you get here?
Oh, how did I get here with healthcare? Well, I fell into healthcare. Well, I actually chose healthcare. When I was in college, I worked at a healthcare company that's since gone under, and my aunt worked in payroll, and so she would employ me on my my summers off, and I got
Hopefully for working, not just on the payroll.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
right.
yeah. And so sometimes that would help her too. It was actually pretty fun. But I got to, it was interesting because they didn't have really a place for me, like an office or a cubicle. So I sat in this corner in the utilization review room with all the case managers, and they were like a riot. These they were nurses, they were, they're all RNs, and they sat and, they were reviewing.
What kind of facility was it?
No, it was a health plan.
Oh, a health plan.
It was a health plan.
Okay,
It was a health plan. And so they sat me there, and I was reviewing these claim forms. I don't know if you know them. They're called PM 160s. So it's for
you would know for sure.
it's like a county funded program. I think the funding ultimately comes overarching from Medi-Cal.
Okay.
And it's for children. And it's essentially it's their annual assessment, and then you capture it on this form.
Okay.
So they literally sat me in this corner, and then they showed me a room, and they're like, the room was just full of papers, and they're like, you have to figure this out. And so at the time, I was actually going to school to become a speech pathologist, not tech, AI, any administration operations. And so I was like, okay, well, I have the summer. My aunt's doing payroll. I'm sitting with a bunch of these nurses that talk all day. So I figured out how to file it. I actually figured out the whole process of the entire regional system. And then I created a database and to capture all the information and found out all of
database. We were just making fun of me.
Oh, do you like databases?
Calling everything a database,
Yeah, everything is a database. Right now, we're talking database.
I call everything a database.
And so I created a database in Access or something like that, and then
we were just talking about this. We'll send you the episode.
And I had no formal training, and so then I switched my my major to computers, information systems. And then I got a job working at another health plan in their IT department, and then I got into systems administration, and I was just really good at processes, but I was really good at high level how things work. I tried coding for a little bit. I didn't really like it because I felt really I was just in the corner. And then, it would be hard for me just to do
Was that in the corner seat of your office or what?
Oh, she has a different company.
Yeah, different company. I actually did work with him.
I might have been in jail during that time.
What? That was that one time.
Yeah, that was
that was that one time.
Yeah, but he actually, he used to be my boss actually at one point.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at ASAP, right?
No.
No.
We're talking 1990s.
No, 2000s.
2000s?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I was still in high school in the 90s.
Okay, 2000s.
But in the 2000s, in revenue cycle management, RCM. And then I went on to the health plan stuff. And then I landed a big job at one of the largest in the world. And then my career just kind of took off from there. And it was interesting, and not to get too on the personal note, but just in the human experience, and then kind of just how everything integrates. Because the company was so big, and I became a rising star, and I was just really good at processes, and I was given some of the largest projects in the company, and did well, and made the company a lot of money. In leveraging AI analytics, I oversaw an innovation lab for a little bit in terms of AI and data science type stuff. I just saw so much money, and I was like, there's so much we could do with it to help people. And there was this innate feeling where I was like, okay, this is so big now. I've seen this big thing. So then I started a flower business. It was because it was so opposite, but that actually taught me how to grind again.
Yeah.
And how to hustle and how to love and have passion and not be a little cog in the wheel,
Yeah.
And
Probably an outlet for you too.
it was an outlet
Yeah.
too. and I made these great connections. And then by way of that, then I got a great opportunity, left the big corporate thing, and then started doing the tech firm stuff. And then they had some funding problems. And then, they kind of, involuntarily furloughed me for quite some time. So then I just was like, okay, I'm going to do this entrepreneurial thing. And that's when Ernest, my cousin, when he was like, hey, there's this shortage of nurses. Let's use your connections. Because I've made some connections.
Yeah. No.
And that's when it was, and I started looking into it. And I was like, that's how I can quote, there's 16,129 hospitals. And I was surprised. I was thinking it was going to be like 100,000 or something like that. I was like, 16,000, that's it? There's not very many.
No, you're right.
And there's not a lot of nurses for 380 million lives.
And it's only getting worse as far as the
we can't catch up.
I guess the prognosis for those hospitals, for those healthcare systems, it's getting harder and harder to stay afloat. Especially in worlds like the one that I'm most involved with, dialysis. So because it sounds like, from...
But I've always been around nurses. Because if you're in the healthcare system, whether you're at a health plan, even at a tech AI firm, they have nurses and clinical staff because they need it.
Right.
And so when everyone else was, doing, these different jobs of advertising and media, I stuck with healthcare. People were like, oh, so busy. Now everyone's focused on it.
Yeah.
Because everyone needs healthcare.
Well, you grew up with nurses. You
worked alongside nurses.
It sounds like your stick came from that early exposure, plus the IT, computer sciences, and the way that you've excelled there. But then it comes back to nursing again.
Yeah.
It all starts with where you began, and maybe that's not coming out loud and clear, but I like I said, I started for a reason. It sounds like, at least based off what you just told me, that kind of the reason is where you came from.
Yeah.
And you've got all these skills that were only complementing where you came from.
Yeah.
Where you came from. Ernest, I'm super, because I've never asked you this, man. We know some of the same people.
Yeah.
From high school.
Yeah.
All right. You're younger than me, so
yeah,
he looks younger, so it's okay to say that. But we know some of the same people, right?
We know some of the same people.
I don't think that if you ask the people from high school about me, where's this guy going to be, that they would say he's really passionate about healthcare and people and helping people. I don't think they would say that about me. I'm curious how you got here as the dot connector, and I, 100% concur with what Kasaya has said here, that there's been so many countless opportunities.
He sees it.
Yeah,
he sees it.
Yeah, he puts people together really well.
Yeah.
So take me back with what you feel comfortable with on where it all came from. How did you get here, man? Why are you so passionate about this?
Let me tell you something. First of all, I'm probably if you ask my family 20 years ago who's most likely to fail, it would be me. If you ask my school, my high school, if you ask some of the people that, they're still around, hey, Ernest, he got out? That would be the next question. He got out of jail?
I've asked him.
Yeah, he got out. I didn't know he was out,
He was always the cool cousin. I will say that. He was. Everyone wanted to hang out with him, though.
I'm 55. Honestly, my journey's a long journey. If I could probably, write a book, but it would be, I'd have to have Snoop Dogg in it because I went to school with him.
There you go.
So I grew up in Long Beach. So I grew up in the 80s in Long Beach. And if you know, the 80s, it was the Wild Wild West when I grew up. So I grew up, we were the fobs, they called us, They called us the fobs back then, and you were always getting beat up going to junior high, going to junior high. It started in junior high, getting beat up.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, we got to stop this. We got to form a gang. So we ended up, forming the first gang in Long Beach.
Oh, I didn't know it was because you were getting beat up.
Of course, we're getting.
It's kind of where it all comes from, right?
It all comes from, we're talking getting bullied. That was nothing, It was we weren't just getting bullied; we were getting stabbed. But so we ended up, I ended up living a really tumultuous teenage life, going in and out of jails, in and out of prisons, and getting into drugs for probably from the age 19 to 26. It was in, it was in, it was a maximum security prison where I really, figured out, hey, wait a second, I got to stop this. This is a cycle that I need to get out of.
Yeah.
I got to. That's why I didn't watch Breaking Bad, because it brings back memories of how I used to cook. You know what I mean? So I only watched 2 episodes, and I said, no, that's it. I'm getting flashbacks.
No, it's no good. Huh?
Yeah, it's no good. So, anyways,
That's true.
yeah. So what happened was, got out of it, got cycled out of it, and my journey with healthcare, started probably when she was talking about in the 2000s, when I got into hospital collections. So I was mentored by this lady. She was a big burly lady, really hey, this is how you do collections. Call them up. Hey, you owe me this money. You gotta pay. It's I was like, yeah, that's the way to go.
She was a collector.
She was a collector. She was a collector. Yeah.
She had one glove on.
She had one glove on. Yeah. She was threatening them. You better not hang up on me.
I like her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I grew up. My career started there, but then it was I've been working for corporate doctors, making them millions. I mean, I worked for a big oncology group that started with just 2 doctors. By the time I left them, there were 24 doctors. So they were making anywhere upwards of 15, 20 million. A month. We're talking a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Now they're a publicly traded company. Believe it or not. Yeah. So I propelled them, but I've always felt like I was underneath this salary cap that I made them money, but I was always living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So, after I got fired, me and my wife were down in the dumps, had no money. We were 4 months in debt in my mortgage. I just started this billing company, right? And that's after I saw you. So we're driving down Laguna Niguel, and I was like, what are these guys doing differently? Why they live here? Why they live over there? And then I started driving down Bixby Knolls, Long Beach, right? This country club drive. And I started they do something differently than we do. So I started reading books, started listening to different people, and I started realizing that there's a 5% population that's controlling the 95.
Yeah.
And I started, I'm not a conspiracy theories by no means, but I'm a realist now because of it. So I started thinking differently than what the normal person does. They say, poor people buy expensive things to make them look rich, right? And the rich people don't care.
Right.
Yeah. So you'll think somebody's rich, they're wearing a suit, but the guy next to him that's wearing a T-shirt is the actual rich guy.
I've heard several of the top CEOs, and I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard that people like Zuckerberg and Jobs, when he was still with us, that they already had they wore the same thing every day.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, they don't care about what you're just talking about, what it looks like, but also it's one less decision to make.
Yeah.
I can save this decision for something else, right?
You have so many things going on in your
Yeah.
head, so many projects.
Yeah, I got something else to spend my energy on besides picking my outfit, right?
Yeah.
So I think as I get older, that becomes an easier concept.
Exactly.
I know. It's an age of entrepreneurship.
Now I'm more. I don't care about looks. I care about comfort.
Yeah. But so Ernest, I'm kind of missing something from that question.
So healthcare.
Healthcare. You got here, but from where you are, because you painted this picture of who you were, and I've never known that person. I only know of that person.
Yeah.
Because we know some similar people, right?
Yeah.
But I've never known that person that was, looking to drugs, that was gangbanging, that any of that stuff that was on the, I know this guy who, when I met you, he had children, and since I met you, you've been like this epitome of righteousness to me, man. Like you live a life that, I admire you.
Yeah, thank you.
And when I look at the family life and, the relationship with your wife and your children.
Yeah.
So that's not who I know. So when I look at the business, like you didn't come from that guy who you were and then do good business like you do without something.
Yeah.
Something.
So, yeah,
like, what is
that's
it?
that special sauce.
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, it's 3 letters. G-O-D. Yeah, God. That's 3 letters. I mean, without him, we were nothing. So, and I'll tell you this story because this is when we first started our business. So me and my wife were driving down the 710 freeway. We rented a 200 square feet room in Cerritos. 200 square feet, probably as big as this. Just this room. And we had 0 clients, yet we leased the building.
Yeah.
It's like it's
of faith.
it's a leap of faith. Steve Harvey talked about it after the Family Feud. He talked about the episode called he said jump. You need to jump.
Yeah.
You need to jump knowing that parachute's going to open.
Yeah.
And that's faith. And so we drove down to 710 every day knowing we're putting money into the suite and there's no clients. And we just prayed every day. Just go in there. And then before you know it, Michael, we got a client. And it wasn't the easiest client to deal with.
It wasn't
yeah, it wasn't even. It wasn't you. It wasn't a nephrologist.
It wasn't a nephrologist.
I hope it wasn't me.
We actually door knocked nephrologist. Shut the door in our face. You know what I mean? We door knocked oncologists because that's what I knew what to do. We don't want to deal with you. You know.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting this old guy that had a community mental health center. And he was like in his
mental
80s.
health, too.
Yeah, it was in the 80s, and he opened it up. Said, "I need help." So we ended up calling Medicare, had a meeting with Medicare, because I didn't know how to build it. Grace didn't know how to build it. So Medicare actually brought a representative, and they're not supposed to. They came and they showed us how to build it.
Wow.
That was interesting,
Yeah,
because
that
of
is.
our continuous effort to really,
Made like an actual.
connection.
Yeah. That's important in every
Yeah.
aspect of life, right?
Every aspect of life. And then from then on, it was just by word of mouth, Michael. And that was, 2015, late 2015 when we got that first client. In 2016, we got another client, surgical center. I didn't know how to bill any surgeries.
And where are you at now? Like how many clients?
So
you
now
have
we have 56 clients. 56 clients. We have 25 employees based in the U.S. And I have 65 in the Philippines.
Wow.
Yeah, Philippines.
Yeah. Well, there we go
Yeah.
again,
There
right?
we go.
There we go again.
Yeah, but they're our own people.
Yeah.
It's not an outsourced BPO. It's,
Yeah.
it's our own. It's our own call center.
Employees.
Gotcha.
Employees.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I think we can all speak to this. Starting a business is, like you said, scary. I heard you both say that there was a realization of making other people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And Ernest, you were kind of right by my side when, in a recent event for me, where I actually had an eye-opening moment during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Helping an organization to build large-scale testing, telehealth, vaccination, and then really seeing a lot of money move
Yeah.
through that You were there, so
I
you
was
saw
there.
a lot of money move through this organization, and then kind of things dissolving, and then where was I at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy that prior to COVID, I had started a business, but I had already come to the realization that it was in fact harder
Yes.
than
Yes.
making those people, a lot of money, and in some case, tens of millions of dollars, right? It's a lot harder to run a business, and there are absolutely sacrifices to open and maintain a business, right?
Yeah.
For me, those sacrifices are most often at the expense of my children, right? Like, hey, school, awards ceremony, recital, things like this.
Yeah, you miss those.
Yeah, I miss a lot of them. And you know, I listen to people and try and justify it in my head, right? And maybe I do justify it in some cases. Like one person I like to listen to is Mike Pena. I don't know if you guys listen to Mike Pena, but he often talks about those missed moments with families. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like choose your heart, which one you want. You know, would you want to be hungry or you want to be missed?
Yeah.
I'm again paraphrasing Morales, right? But
Yeah.
but like, what are your guys' experience is in starting business, the fulfillment that you get out of it, whether it be monetarily or in not having to answer to somebody else, or just the purpose alone of what you're doing today, Kasaya, what you're doing, Ernest, Kasaya.
So I'm at the phase of starting out where I'm looking to generate revenue for the businesses the business that I founded with my business partner now, and what we're doing now. The projects are great. Valuation forecasting looks good, but hasn't seen anything. So it doesn't scare me. I think so. When I got furloughed from that tech firm, and they didn't, they were saying they were going to pay me and all this stuff. I was working for them. I didn't have health insurance. I ended up in the ER. I called actually Ernest, and I
Let me hold something, all right.
I was just like, well, how do you get Medi-Cal? I was in like severe pain. I thought I was going to have surgery.
Oh, no.
It ended up being like just stress and stuff, just because from what I was going through. But I learned about the system. And in that moment, I was like, but I don't want to, I remember thinking like, I don't want to stop, because my whole life, my adult life, have been working for someone else and making, like, some of my projects were like hundreds of millions of dollars I would make.
Right.
Yeah. And you would get like, pat on the back or, something like that. And you kind of start, at least for me, you start to die a little bit, if like your passion and you're like, is this all there is as I go to work and I get a steady paycheck. And then that steady paycheck went away, and then it became really real.
Yeah.
And I had my flower business, which kind of kept me along. Then the firm kind of like got refunding, and they kind of reintegrated me in a way. But I've learned so much. And then the realization that I've learned so much, I think, is what it was for me. Because when you work under like the confines in like even if it's like a big corporation, like, and you have a boss and they tell you what to do, you lose creativity. And not just to be like an artist, but you have to be creative in your business dealings, and how you connect, and how you structure contracts, and how you negotiate, and how and so on and so forth. It made it. I was like ready, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do this, and have faith, that it's all coming together. That's why, us all coming together was really great. I am fortunate because I also have had a career. So I have had money that, and I'm good with, I try to be a good steward of what I have.
Yeah.
So I'm not coming from nothing, which is good, if that makes sense. But I'm at the beginning where, I was actually, Ernest was like, I don't get excited about signed contracts anymore. I get excited when I get paid.
Yeah.
And I used to get excited too. I'm learning that, I have all these contracts and partnerships, but I'm like, I'll get excited when things follow through.
So the business I started prior to meeting Ernest, and I still own, it's a dialysis school, and we enroll people for classes, right? And of course we've trained thousands of people over the last 15 years, but similar to what you just said, like, we can have a signed contract, we can have a enrollment, registration paid, and my mom works with me. She says, like, they're not a student until I see the white of their eyes in the classroom, which it's like, it's so Same true. Thing. It is so true. Like, you can't realize it until it's realized, right? And I've grown over the years, and my language has changed a little bit, that, we work for outcomes. We don't work for the contract. right? We work for the outcome of that contract, which is hopefully an improvement in somebody's life. For us, it's the clients that we serve in teaching, but it's much bigger than that, because what I preach to the people we teach as pupils, I'll translate that to like employees, is that, you know, if we onboard an employee, like I want a great outcome in onboarding, right? But the real outcome I want is for the patients that are being served, right? And in healthcare, like as training dialysis techs or training nurses or training billing specialists, ultimately you want the best for the patient, right? So that's the outcomes we're looking for. We're looking for outcomes with our people, but then also the people that our people serve.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember, Michael, when talking to you, because you have a big passion for what you do. And when it's something you want to focus on, you're passionate about, when you were talking about when you were running the COVID clinics, and you were running circles around.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was working pretty damn hard.
Right? And then that same energy for that outcome redirected to your endeavors, it changes things. And that's what I learned.
Yeah.
You know, is I would take that same energy and burn all those calories into like a corporate job or a firm. And all of a sudden they stopped paying me. I didn't have health insurance. I was like stuck in the ER. I was like, how am I going to pay for this? You know?
Yeah.
But I still have that same energy and passion, but it's directed towards something that I can grow.
Yeah.
And that I can put my faith and effort into for those outcomes. And it just, it's like once you taste that, it's like it's
So I got to ask
to
you
turn
this.
around.
I ask myself this question a lot: is if the reward financially were the same in working for me and then clocking out at 5 o'clock versus owning your own business and never clocking out, which one do you choose?
Owning my own business and not clocking out.
I'll never work for anyone again. No.
So it's not about the money that you bring in; it's something else.
Yeah, it's the freedom that you have.
The
So you can't buy that. Now, here's my take on that. I told Grace, my wife, you know, because even though we have a successful business, you don't know what tomorrow holds.
Yeah.
I get a heart attack. I get hit by a car.
Yep.
The company could go bankrupt. But I told Grace this. I said this to my wife. Look, out of all the people we've met in the last 9 years, if our company goes bankrupt, all I have to do is pick up a phone and I'll be the CFO of another company.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's true.
I'm guaranteed a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never, and I told her that. We built so many networks. And it's kind of like but be careful networking, because it's like taking a metal detector. You're going to the beach. You get a bunch of rocks. Then you get a piece of metal. You dig it, and it's a coin. You put it in your pocket. It's just like networking. You meet a bunch of people that are going to waste your time.
Yeah.
So you throw those away.
Yeah.
You get to meet a bunch of people that are going to be gems. You may not use them now, but you use them later.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's like, for me, that's what healthcare is all about. I mean, look, you go on the internet, you find billing companies. You'll have like 25 of them come up. And you keep on pressing, in the bottom of Google, next, you see another one. There's dime a dozen. So, but the difference is, I know we're talking about AI earlier. So I'm not a big proponent of AI, especially in my field, because in what we do, I still believe, I'm old school, I'm from the 80s, so I still believe in skill, people's skill.
Isn't it funny how almost all the people say they're old school are really, they're old school?
Yeah,
Like,
they're old
it's from the 80s,
From
right?
the 80s, from the 80s,
There's
yeah.
no somebody who says well, I was born in 2000, but I'm old school. There's none of those.
Yeah,
right?
there's none of those. Yeah, and Kasaya can attest to this. I was about to work with one of her firms she used to work with, and they had AI. And quite frankly, medical billing, what we do, it's a people skill.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going back to that burly lady that first showed me how to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A robot isn't going to do that.
Yeah.
People, yeah. So I love this in this framing, because out there, everyone thinks AI is going to solve everything.
Yeah.
Because we're always looking for something to solve everything, the silver bullet, just, and it never is.
Never.
And the thing that I've gone really deep into AI. So my area is cognitive AI. So there's the machine learning stuff you see. Netflix suggests the movie that you should watch just based upon your past history.
That's like predictive, right?
Predictive. Prescriptive is like, well, we think you're gonna like this movie. And then there's cognitive, which is like thinking. So it's like reasoning. It's basically common sense. It's this area of knowledge that goes overlooked, or really it's underappreciated, which is common sense, which our brains do it in rapid fire. We are the most intelligent machines in this universe. And and that's what I love about AI, because it showed me how because I've done stuff for billing and charting and coding in terms of AI, you cannot replace the human.
Right.
You may shift some of the work, but machines are made to do fast things. Just the production line, for making the car, that's what machines do. We're trying to create like humans, but we're nowhere near that, just so you know. We're nowhere near that from a cognitive perspective.
So it seems like, I mean, for me, like, because I've actually taken a liking to AI.
I love AI.
Not at the level that you're talking, but
we interact with it every day.
I like ChatGPT.
That's new to me. I haven't even checked that out.
I like autocorrect sometimes. I like that. But I've actually, I probably overindulge more than most people in using like ChatGPT, right? In business, I've really become attracted to like the CRM and the AI capabilities of CRMs, right? Like Salesforce, for example. I look at it for guidance and, like you said, to do things faster. I don't look for it to replace people. I look for it to augment and to enhance a human's capabilities. And for me, as a founder and owner of a company, to really provide fast dashboard that can take, as you know, like months of time. Like when we did the COVID operations, we all have a mutual friend, but he kept telling me, Morales, I need dashboards and they need to be real time. And he challenged me, to really look for tools that could provide clarity to the leadership on the evolving nature of COVID, county to county, the number of tests, the number of positive tests, and where we should be planting operations. We were using it right there.
Because folks want to make decisions, and they want those decisions to be good decisions based upon good information, and they want to cull through a mountain and sea worth of data. And humans, operationally, that's very expensive. It's prone to error. It's decision support. AI is code. I think AI is great, but the cognitive ability for us as humans to have reasoning and context, you can't program in a machine yet, and we're very far from it.
No, AI has its AI has its purposes. And I think it should stay where it's good at and leave the human aspect alone. Like, I'll tell you, I hate going.
Like
I'm going to tell you, I hate going. AI, do you want to know? You want to know how much I hate AI?
I love it.
Try going to a McDonald's and using that big old pad. It takes me 15 minutes to order.
Hold on. Do you know what we talk about here? First of all, so I'm just kidding, man. So we talking about like fitness and health and diabetes and hyper. Stop going to McDonald's.
I'm going to McDonald's and I'm ordering. It takes me 15 minutes to order 3 hamburgers when I can just go right
the fruit.
Yeah, when I can go right to the lady and it's just like 5-10 seconds. Here's what I want. You know.
Yeah.
That slows me down.
Yeah. So I think AI is a really hot topic today.
I love it.
I know it is. I before we got started, I kind of made a joke of, I think there's a lot of money going into AI, and including myself. I've spent some decent change on AI. I have within the roadmap to have a return on investment from that AI, right? And I think a return on investment, one is guidance and freeing up of time. That's a good return on investment, but
Those are like more the softer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
AI right now with proving the hard like top line stuff. It being someone who's worked with a tech firm and like having to have these conversations and try to structure deals. When you have the finance guy in the room, it's always hard because you're like, spend, for example, $1 million on this thing. And they're like, well, how am I going to make money? And you're like, well, you're going to save on operating expense.
Well, it's still not washing, is
Yeah.
it? Like the investment for the AI or the investment
You get
for
back
these
time,
tools
better
is
insights,
costly,
yeah.
but like, are you offsetting with the labor you're saving yet?
Yeah.
I don't see it yet,
Not
but
yet.
I am, it is in my view that I'm doing it for a reason. And I think at scale that like we have, especially on the sales side, like we have a good opportunity to make some leaps and bounds. But, you know, digressing back to some other hot topics and really what kind of brought, at least on the side of Kasaya, like the most recent uniting of this group, nursing shortages in the United States. California's got
Huge.
some unique issues
Yeah.
besides the shortages of wage indexing, not just of healthcare, but even non-healthcare, even fast food
Yeah.
workers per se, to where like allied healthcare specialists is becoming actually not the most attractive area to go into these days. Like if you want to be a CNA, an MA, billing and coding,
Yeah.
well, I got to go to school for that, and I have to have responsibilities. But I could just go work at McDonald's and let them push the screen,
Yeah.
and collect their money.
Yeah.
right.
$20 an hour.
So, I mean, let's talk about the nursing shortage. You know, you both have seen from different angles of specialists to large corporations the impact that the already present nursing shortage, coupled with COVID, coupled with vaccination mandates, and then really the dismissal of many nurses in the United States and allied healthcare specialists,
Yes.
and now trying to call them back.
And they don't want to.
Yeah, and they've
Yeah.
decided
It's a
that they
hard
can do
job.
other things, right?
It's difficult.
Nursing is a difficult job,
Yeah.
you know? And once you see that you don't have to do it, they don't come
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
I mean that's still shocking to me to
Yeah.
hear that people who became nurses out of circumstance found that like, well, I can do something else. And you know what? Now that I can go back and be a nurse, I don't actually want to do it. I know many nurses who went and became writers, like medical writers, like bloggers and stuff like that. But other things as well. So what can you say about the nursing shortage impact on corporate healthcare in the United States? What can you say about nurses shortage on practices in the United States, and then the impact of care to the patients, which is the most important part of this?
About 6 months ago, we just closed a contract with a hospital. So we bill for a hospital here in Long Beach, believe it or not. It's a psychiatric hospital. And the shortage of nurses, I talk with the CEO almost, twice a week. And he knows that, I have this capability of bringing him the nurses. But I think getting the hospital to really pull the trigger too at the same time, because of us bringing nurses from overseas, there's a time gap.
Right.
So it's difficult because the hospital wants the nurse like yesterday.
So you can't teleport them. In
Yeah,
other
you
words, from
can't
the
teleport
Philippines.
them from the Philippines.
That'd be great.
And it's also a cost issue in California because the wage index here is one of the highest
Right.
here,
Right.
Hawaii,
Yeah.
and another state, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge, and it impacts. I see the impact on patient care. That's number one. Number two, you have more nurse practitioners having to see more patients than their load because there's a shortage of nurses.
Yeah.
And then you have these traveling nurses that aren't from the state. So they don't know the culture. So it's the dynamics is really difficult because the hospital spends double on a traveling nurse.
Yeah, it's a premium price for the
Premium price.
the staff or the traveling nurse. You're right.
And it's drawing on the revenue of the hospital. That's because every week, I get a report from believe it or not, their CPA is from the Philippines. The hospital CPA is from the Philippines. Yeah.
They outsource their CPA.
They outsource their CPA. So because they're trying to save money.
Right.
So she sends this report on the cost report and every week how much is going into nursing.
Yeah.
How much is going into, and it's like 70%, if not.
I mean, it's always
more.
been disproportionate, right? Labor in healthcare has always been disproportionate, but I think when I noticed it was COVID, operating a pretty large COVID operation, we did a lot of outsourcing, a lot of staffing company, and the rate was 2.5 of what you were paying
a regular
for a direct hire.
Yeah, 2.5 times.
Two and a half times. Yeah, it was high, and we had a pretty substantial workforce that was on that sort of agreement. COVID was something that we could do that. We could.
Yeah.
The volume, the reimbursement for the actual lab tests, the codes for telehealth. It was something that it could be done. But when you look at traditional healthcare setting, like for me, like I live and breathe dialysis, they have a bundled reimbursement rate.
Yeah.
That didn't change.
That didn't
COVID.
change. No.
It's moved like it's less than the cost of living, the annual increase to the reimbursement bundle. And yet we have the staffing, we have the travelers, and then in California, we just have moved all these laws with the minimum wage of healthcare workers and even fast food workers, right? So it just puts this really almost a dark light on healthcare of like, is this a place where people want to go to? And when we look at like the past 30 years, the number one profession around the world, trusted profession, has been nurses.
Yeah.
Well, that seems really great as far as attraction to a profession, but if I'm not going to be paid well, or if I'm going to be working short-staffed, or if there is no money within the healthcare system to actually sustain care, I see facilities shutting down. It becomes not the most attractive profession anymore.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the U.S. nursing market, and then we look at the overseas, like why is it that there's still an abundance of nurses in the Philippines, but we see less and less people attracted to nursing in the United States?
So part of that is our immigration policies. So there's the H-1B, which is a temporary visa, from 2 at the max 6 years. You can get sponsorship, in this case for nurses at a hospital, and then there's the EB-3. There's a bunch of others, but EB-3 is kind of what they use for nurses, and what that does is it brings in a foreign worker to our land, but the end result is for a green card.
Right.
So there was a big surplus of that that kind of happened with Filipino nurses in the 80s.
Yeah. I remember my aunt she became a nurse in the 80s, and she's an American lady. She was so upset with how many Filipino nurses were coming in at the time. She said, taking American jobs. And we should have kept that up, right? And that narrative has
kind of changed because what you guys are talking about, Ernest and yourself, Michael, is that the workforce that is on the ground, boots on the ground right now in the hospitals and elsewhere, urgent care centers and so on and so forth, they're overburdened. So there's the upskilling that Ernest talked about. So they're moving up now. You can be a nurse practitioner and have your own practice. So the RNs, the BSNs are like, I want. So they're losing,
right?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah.
So they're leaving, right? So then you have that, decline there. They decided they want to become a writer. Right, that's happening, and so there's this shortage. So it's not attractive to go into a marketplace, even though they're trying to attract nurses with higher wages. So there is a problem, and it's not going to get better.
It's not.
It's going to get worse. So something has to happen with creative legal ways to get foreign workers into the United States.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because the staffing that we're talking about, when we talk to them, like I go to the table with CEOs of these companies and hospitals, and they want nurses because they need it.
Yeah.
They want it next week,
Right.
but we're like, I can't go get an H-1B, or EB-3. It's like 10 to maybe 18 months, 24 months, right? And they're like, no way, get out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they have to go to the travel nurses that are making $200-$300 an hour.
Yep.
And the patient care has declined. No offense to it. This is just what's the reality.
Right.
And the hospitals are closing because their payroll, amongst the regulations, amongst lower reimbursement rates, they're just getting hit like left and right, and they're closing. And the healthcare system, people don't see. Nurses may be getting these higher wages, but the healthcare system's imploding.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
I mean, continuity of care is essential in the outcome, right? Especially in the chronic and the outpatient world.
Yeah.
When you talk in the hospital world, I mean, it may not be as essential as like a dialysis center to have the same nurses and techs working, but the premium cost, even in a hospital, even a skilled nurse, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
As far as reimbursement is concerned.
I think it's a systemic problem because our immigration laws are hypocritical. It takes 18 months to maybe even longer to get a professional nurse from
NCLEX.
An
Right.
NCLEX professional nurse, into the United States. And you've got millions pouring from the southern border.
Right.
I might as well tell the nurse, go through Mexico, you'll probably get here faster.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
You know what I mean, though? It's
No,
the immigration
I do.
laws
Yeah.
backwards. Like,
You're right.
come on, like...
so there needs to be kind of what's being said here and what's on the table is there needs to be not so much an overhaul, but we need to just start addressing some of the major problems. So before in the 80s it was, or even, I've been in tech and it's like they're taking our jobs or, bringing over folks on H-1Bs. It's not like that in nursing world because I have nursing friends, nursing family, and I tell them, hey, I founded this business and we're doing this. And at first I had trepidation. I'm like, okay, they're a nurse. Are they going to be like, why are you bringing nurses from the Philippines? They're like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because they're so overworked.
Right.
And
Right.
and the work is not going to stop. It's only going to get more and more. And they're like, that would be amazing.
Well, let me ask you another question.
It's a different narrative and acceptance.
Let's throw
right now.
another discussion of solution or part of a solution. So we have a pretty narrow scope of practice for registered nurses and then a limiting scope of practice for licensed vocational nurses. Almost to the point where
They're not
in
allowed
certain
in
environments,
hospitals.
in certain environments, it's like, why would you become a licensed vocational nurse, right?
It is very creative.
So what about the licensed vocational nurse utilization in the United States? Underutilized. What are your thoughts there? Is this something that could perhaps bridge a small gap in certain environments, and which environments, if so?
Yeah, the problem with I see with that is that a lot of the LVNs are sectioned off only to skilled nursing facilities and home health.
Right.
They're not allowed to...
Or mental health.
Yeah, they're not allowed to practice as much as an RN is.
Right.
And so there's less and less people going into LVNs.
Right.
So then, there's less and less people going into RN. So it's climactic what's happening, and the shortage is getting bigger, and we're getting older. So the generation in front of me, they're the ones that's going to need the nurses, and there's a lot of them. They're called the OGs.
Yeah.
The OGs are dying, and they're in hospitals. They're in nursing homes.
Yep.
And they're the ones that need the patient care.
Right.
But there's not enough nurses.
There isn't, and I like what you're laying down, I think. And I think what you're saying is, so I don't know the denominator, like the total number of LVNs in the US,
I don't
like
either.
I do,
Yeah.
like
I don't.
RNs and stuff. But if you could create an educational credentialing structure because they're also an associates. Like an RN is an ADN unless they're a BSN, right?
Yeah.
They're an RN.
Yeah.
An LVN, a vocational nurse, is also an associate's, limited, as Ernest is saying, to specific facilities like nursing, mental health, or skilled nursing, SNFs.
The
mental
scope
health.
is really what
Scope
it
is-
boils
The
down
scope-
to. Yeah.
scope.
But
Yeah.
if the scope, to your point, was broadened and there was additional credentials through a vocational school, that could be one way
Yeah.
Yeah.
to broaden the scope, because I believe LVNs were once allowed they were in hospitals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
Well, you
in the past decade, they were like, you can't be in hospitals. It has to be
even dialysis, right? So I would say there's not too many LVNs that work in dialysis facilities, but we're a special state. We have like a lot of extra regulations behind things, right? Including the nursing scope of practice. And when it comes to dialysis access care, so some patients have internal access where they need needles put in them.
Yeah.
Dialysis techs can do that.
Yeah.
In California, or I should say everywhere except for California, if they have a catheter, like a surgically implanted catheter, right? Only a nurse can, or should I say everywhere except for in California, techs can do that. In California, a tech cannot touch a catheter. So if you have a clinic full of catheters, you may need more nurses, right? And it's kind of a limiting factor. It's a stretching factor for nurses in clinics. If they've got catheters, they've got to supervise plus do that catheter care. Because if I'm a tech, let's say the three of us are techs in a dialysis center, there'll be one RN that supervises the three of us and all the patients we take care of. If you take care of 4 patients, if you take care of 4, I take care of 4, and they're all needles, then we do all the work. But if there's a catheter, only the nurse can do that. So in California, a licensed vocational nurse would actually be well utilized in clinics with catheters. They are in some, but it's not the most attractive career today, right?
Yeah,
An LVN. And I can remember running a nursing home and the wage that we hired an RN for and an LVN, it was just drastically different.
Yeah.
My daughter's an LVN. COVID kind of changed the tune for her because she worked in telehealth and things for this, and she makes a really nice wage. But I think that, expanding on the scope of practice for LVNs could help. It's definitely not going to be anything that really moves the needle, but I think it could help in certain areas of healthcare.
Yeah, because I don't think there's one silver bullet that's going to just it's not going to foreign workers. I think is going to have a good beneficial impact of bringing NCLEX, RNs, LVNs. If to your point, which I love that actually, because it's an additional solution,
right?
Not just one, right? Because it is a problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
So let me keep on the hot topics, and then we'll kind of wind down. We've got the shortages. Wages are, and they're a never-ending pain point for any industry, right?
Yes.
It's getting hard to pay for our nurses.
Yeah.
Healthcare as a whole, digressing again back to like the culture that we talked about of caring and nurturing and like in the DNA to be that way, right? There's a lot of value put on the dollar today, a lot of value. And somebody in a recent podcast it's our last one, she had said a quote from somebody she was getting coached from, and she said that no traffic on the extra mile. Have you guys heard this before?
No.
But it seems to me like what I'm seeing out there is like, well, and I know this one very well is, hey, Ernest, you're a seasoned technician. I need you to meet Kasaya. She's the new technician, and show her way. And you say to me, how much are you going to give me? That's kind of the way of the day.
That's
right?
the way of the day.
The way of the day.
Yes.
There's no extra mile with me. Like, how much are you going to give me, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys see the same thing in work ethic? You have an office full of, I'd say, a pretty youthful group. I've been to your office, pretty youthful group. Change in work ethic from, pre-COVID, 10 years ago. Like, what's going on?
So where we are today and the employees I have is probably the biggest investment we've made is in finding the right person. We've got millennials, right? You've got people born in the 90s, people born in, and there's a lot of good.
It's just Paco.
Yeah.
Did you just point at Paco, born in the 90s?
No.
We're cool, man, Ernest,
You paid him or what?
Yeah. What we look for, before I look for skill, before I look for a coding certificate, I actually don't even care. I look for values. And, I've got some young ones in the office, but they have values from their parents. So they're hard workers. They don't ask for extra to stay up, to stay late. You know, at a moment's notice, I can ask them to do
You
do
guys
something.
cut that one from the labor board. Like,
Oh, really?
block the labor board. Don't worry.
Oh man. Yeah. So it's really finding those gems again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a big mix of different races, different age groups. I have some older ones, and I think an organization needs a balance of both, the older generation and the younger generation.
Is it harder to find? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think that I would pin it down to millennials or younger people these days.
No, it's
because
not.
it's not just that.
It's
I've
not-
seen a work
that's-
ethic change among all.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Let's there's people right there. You
Yeah.
find gems. It's a harder interview process for me today when I meet people. Like we're going to go through multiple interviews with multiple players in the organization. A much more formalized type of interview.
Yeah.
We're going to reference people more than we did in the past. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're doing the same.
Yeah,
You follow
I
up
never
forever.
passed my background check for me. so
Well, I didn't say background. I said reference, man.
I did myself. And
If
I
they
didn't
call me
pass,
for a
so-
reference for you, we're good. But
Yeah.
if they do your back, I don't know.
But yeah. I mean, for me, it's a tough process because you've really got to do a lot of vetting.
Yeah.
So I don't ask the traditional questions that a company asks, like what do you think about this? What do you think about? I ask them about their family. I ask them about how did you get here? Especially if they're an immigrant.
So you don't have an HR director then?
I don't know. That's
Because I already know that one's against the family. Hold
Yes,
on.
family. Yeah. How old are you? Are you divorced? Why did you get a divorce?
All right. So you ask all the questions that you're not supposed to. All right. But it's about the person.
It's about the person. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that you just there's a little bit more selectivity
Yeah.
with a changing work ethic.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this? 'Cause
I agree, and I was thanks for asking, because I think it's just overall, it's not a certain cohort or generational thing. I think this is like another great topic to talk about, is just like workforce and all that stuff. But really, folks see the world differently. I think COVID really honed in to people that of our mortality, and that our time on this planet is finite. So they want to really redeem the time, and they saw that they were sitting in a cubicle or in an ER, and they weren't aware, and they became aware of their unawareness.
Yep.
And so now I think people are trying to figure out, one, because I have this question asked to me a lot. What is your passion? And I ask people what is their passion, and they stumble because we're waking up to our mortality, our finiteness, and how can we engage in the world. And I think people really want to engage, and I truly believe now, as we're shifting, folks want to go that extra mile, whether you pay them or not. But they're trying to articulate in their minds, like, what is my passion? Because before it was, and I kid you not, people would tell me spreadsheets. And they really believed it. And I actually started believing them. I was like, maybe they're just really passionate about spreadsheets. But that's all they knew. And then, because folks were kind of ingrained with, my passion has to equal monetary value. But sometimes your passion leads you to something. It led me to this table.
Yeah.
I could have never predicted this.
Right. Yep.
So to your point, I think there's a shift, or to your question, I think there's a shift. It's not a generational thing. I truly believe people want to go that extra mile. They're just realizing that they want to, because they're trying to figure out their place in this world, their time on this planet, their purpose. And then once they figure out, this is my passion, whatever it would be, they want to bring other people along.
Yeah.
I believe in the human experience. I believe that's why we're in healthcare. I believe, that in a way we're all connected. Whether the Philippines or United States, and a nurse, we have these borders, right? But we want to integrate everyone across this planet that we all live in. You know, that's what I think.
There's a saying that goes, it's never left me. It says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so, you know, any organization, from your school to her company to the companies we work with, everything's going to rise and fall on leadership, because a company, you know, the thing that hurts companies the most is turnover. That'll kill a company faster than anything.
Oh yeah.
Because turnover is a cancer.
Yep.
And people start wondering why they're leaving. And so, how do you prevent turnover? It's leadership. It's motivation. And, you know, you can find a person that has the values. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right?
Yeah.
So you can find a person that has the values, but it's up to you as a leader. It's up to you as a CEO to motivate them, to bring out those values that they already have inside of them. And I think that's what we do at our company is, you know, we treat them like family.
Yeah.
And so, because I remember being an employee.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like a number.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember feeling like they just kept me in this little place. And so I know now what not to do with my employees, because I know how to, I knew how I felt when I was one. So, you know, that's why these companies like, you know, Apple, you talk about Apple, you talk about all these big companies. Maybe they're not so good now, but in the beginning, they were great. You know, we're talking about Disney when Disney was great, you know, obviously it's changed. Bud Light, all these other companies, right? You know, at one point, they were doing something right, you know, and then they became this big conglomerate companies. But they got big because they instilled something in their employees, a sense of value, a sense of ownership, right?
I can't help but think, you know, with the experiences that you guys have both shared of kind of that dissatisfaction or need for more satisfaction in owning a business, right? And then what you just said with like, how do you prevent the turnover, keep people, right? Well, at a certain point, they remember, like, people may feel like they're just making you money or somebody money, right? And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to articulate this, but is that dangerous when we have people who, because of the way they are treated by their employer, make up their mind that they want to open a business, and they have no business opening a business.
They have no idea what it takes.
Yeah. So like you guys talked about making and helping people to make a lot of money, build businesses, but it's totally possible that people without that same experience, who just are part of the movement of it within a business, feel the same way and decide like, hey, I'm going to go out and do this thing, right? And I, you know, it's kind of something that I've focused on a lot with nursing as well. As a lot of the nurses that come out of school, they want to go straight into owning businesses. They don't want to do care. They want to be like a what do you call it? Aesthetic nurse, right? They want to open a clinic right off the bat. They want to be a social media nurse. They want to be a writer, something along the. And I'm not saying any of those are bad things, but what I'm saying is like, can that be dangerous when we have people like us who make up their mind too soon that they want to start a business, and business doesn't work out? But beyond that, like, is that harming our society? Like, I've noticed a lot of people today, they want to open business. They want to. That's the ticket these days, is be your own boss.
Be your own boss. And I think just like children in a sandbox, it's good for them to experiment with how to, play or swing on, the bars or whatever. And I think that's true as an adult. I think if you don't have it in you, and I'm the newest in this group here in terms of the entrepreneurial, but I'm out there and I'm feeling it. And if you're not passionate about it, because the money doesn't come right away. It doesn't. And when you think it's going to come after you've been waiting, it still doesn't come.
It's never in your time.
Right? And so if they're successful, then they're doing well. They figured something out. but likely if they don't have it in, it's not going to work out, and they're going to, they're going to meet an interview.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's my opinion. Let folks experiment and see. And if they do something great and amazing, they'll learn just like we all did to become better leaders, better people. But if not, then they'll fall suit again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So,
I mean, I got to tell you that comes from a personal
experience.
I've got 4 kids. One of them's a nurse. She also works for me as a nurse, but as an educator at the school. The second, he owns a business. He takes care of koi ponds and streams and things like this. And he's the one that troubles me. By far, he's an entrepreneur out of all my kids so far. He's an entrepreneur. But he also has decided to work smart before he worked hard.
Oh, so that's a one thing, though, where people are all about working smart, but then not knowing how to scrub a toilet.
Yes. and knock on wood, he's an adult. He doesn't ask for money. He does his own. But so, respect there. But like that kind of, it's always a question to me. And maybe it's just dad, right? Like, no, work hard and smart, right?
Yeah.
Like don't work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
Work smart and hard. And then the sky's the limit, right? Because I just see like sometimes you can be too smart for your for your own good. For your own good, right? Well, guys, I do want to digress a little bit here and kind of lead us into the evening hours. I know you guys have families waiting for you. Paco's got a family at home waiting for him. But I always like to hopefully take one last thing home. And I think the conversation today is really focused around that entrepreneurial spirit, but then like really like the purpose and the right way to go about being an entrepreneur, with a purpose, with people. You talked about it with the office and the family environment. And, I don't know if I agree with all the questions, Ernest, because I had to serve HR for a short time. And I know some of them are out of bounds. Yeah, some of them are out of bounds. but I agree with you. It's about people, right?
Yeah,
and I would say that the audience that we have, they're looking at things like their health care. They're looking at their health care career. And a lot of them are looking at, this guy Morales, who they knew me back in the days. And it's like, how did you come from that to where you're at today? And I don't want to claim to be on any sort of high level, but I can say that where I was at in high school, even after a lot of years of high school, that I'm in a much better place, that I'm thinking about impacting communities, impacting my family, most of all. But, as a business owner, both of you, as a healthcare professional and very successful healthcare professionals, if you were to speak to somebody that is trying to get to the highest level in healthcare where they can impact people's lives, whether it be the people who own those businesses and make them a lot of money, or more importantly, the people that those businesses serve. What's your advice to Kasaya at that age in becoming that high level professional, or fast forward into that person that's owning a business and hiring
I love this question.
The very best.
I love this question, and thank you, because you gave me an opportunity to respond in something that I've always thought about. And I never thought I would get an opportunity, so thank you. So for me, there's folks, so I'm a hard worker. I'll dig a ditch, scrub buckets. I've done it. You know what I mean? And not ditches, but I've put in the work, right?
Like Goodfellas ditch? Or?
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right.
But meaning like I elbow grease as they would say. I believe relatively I've done the hard work. But when I was younger, I wanted to impact change because there were certain outcomes that I wanted to see. So you were saying like, oh, this guy Morales, and people were wondering where he is now. And I think you refocused your energy to our further, part of the podcast where we talked about outcomes. Your outcomes, the desire for those outcomes changed, and so you refocused your energy. And so for me, I always wanted to focus on my energy on something where globally you can impact positive change. So you can be a good leader, you can write policy. There's the folks that are, that have, the production line work, which is great too. You need that. But if you are someone who's aspiring to be to the top and you don't want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe you do, at the end of the day, if you can create policy, rules, specific for a health population that has beneficial outcomes, that's where you want to be. And that normally happens to be in like executive leadership, management, health regulatory and policy. Or, be an entrepreneur and bring nurses from the Philippines here. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. And I my gear starts going when you talk rules, because, kind of growing up very similar to Ernest. I fought rules like my whole life, but
yes, me too.
As a professional in healthcare, like you're bound all over the place by rules for reimbursement, for condition for coverage, condition for participation, contract, and all of those sort of things.
Yes.
So like I really, that resonates with me. Then I think you should have told Ernest that when he was a kid about the rules, because he likes to break the rules.
I feel like every entrepreneur has a history of like breaking rules.
Yeah, that
being
might be
defiant.
true. That might be true. Yeah.
I was like that.
Ernest, go back, and I think there's probably a few hard pieces of advice, but like to get to this point, what's the advice for young Ernest?
So if I was to see myself back when I first started, I would tell myself two things. One, you're gonna fail. Okay. But failure is actually the best teacher.
Amen.
Okay. And number two, most important thing is to never forget God. Because for me personally, it's been the driving force.
Yeah.
Because, we want to give back to society. We want to give back to healthcare. We want to give back to our children. But the ultimate way to do that is to give back to God. Because I wouldn't be here without Him. And so for us, and I'm not afraid and I'm not shy to say it, America has digressed and ran away from where it began.
Yeah.
And so our company, we're based on the truth. We're based on faith, and we're based on family. And that's what we need to get back to. But so what I'll tell my younger self is, you're gonna fail, but don't ever stop. Don't ever stop believing, and don't ever give up. Because it's at the times that you're weakest is when He's strongest. And so for me, I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never really wanted to own a business.
Yeah.
I was just forced to get into it.
Yep.
Forced to think differently. And what I will tell my younger self is, don't look at the 100 people. Look at the one person that's different, and figure out what he's doing right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big spinols.
Yeah. That's all great. That's all great advice, and it's kind of a cliche that I think is probably touring the internet about priorities in life, and family, faith, and health. And I'll just add to what you guys said. If I were to look back at my young self, I'd agree with everything you guys just said. The one thing that I would heavily emphasize, I'm 46 now. Ernest, a few years younger than me, but
55.
But looks many years younger.
I used to be the speed limit when I used to be the freeway speed limit back in the 70s, 55.
But I think as I come to this mid-advanced, whatever it is, this age, of this point in my life, I've kind of looked at the things in between a lot. I've looked at the job, I've looked at the money, I've looked at the material things quite a bit. And I have a very strong family that I'm the leader of. I've experienced many monumental moments as far as realization of faith in my life. I've been through familial and personal health issues on the mental and the physical side. So again, aligned with everything you guys said, and you've touched on faith, you've touched on family. I would touch on the health to my young self, and to say that, like you said, don't give up. That there are things that you have to keep doing in life, and I really wish at this point that I would have kept some of my youth in the health side, in more exercise, more movement, and then more leisure, so that I would be mentally, have the mental fortitude to go through some of the trials that we go through.
Yeah.
I've failed, more times than I've succeeded.
Yeah.
And it's just not an easy thing to do when there's health concerns going on, when there's family issues going on, which we're always going to have, right? And then I think the one that you can rely on the most is your faith, right? Because that just doesn't change. But your family and your health are going to be trivial. Your faith can remain steadfast. So don't lose track of those things. Maintain a life of discipline with focus on those three things. I think
that's a good one.
We'll be solid when we get to this age of 46 or 41 or
55.
If I could add one last thing, just really quickly. So when you're asking, like, what would be the advice, to get to that high level, entrepreneur or whatever. And I love the advice that you guys have, but I did also want to dial back in on faith, and then also to the young girls that may be listening to this, that are pursuing a career that's technical, or I think females are known to be nurses and and all that stuff. But I went on the healthcare side, but the more administrative operations technical, and there wasn't very many like me to be brave.
Yeah.
And that's where your faith is really going to help you.
Yeah. I agree.
So I always tell young women to be brave and have courage, but know your faith. Really, this isn't like a moment like a female type of thing, but I've had some really hard moments, and especially the higher up I moved.
Yeah.
But
we've talked
it's
about
your
this.
faith.
You
It's
and I
your
have
faith.
talked about this before, and we'll take just a minute if you don't mind, Ernest. But like, I actually talked to Kasaya about this before. I was like, it's got to be challenging to sit in some of the tables that we've sat at before with some of the people that we've sat with.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not it's not a male, female. It's not a tall Ernest and short Kasaya. It's not a color thing. It's simply like, there's this thing called imposter syndrome, right? And I think we can all feel that.
Yeah.
And to your point of being brave, like I felt the same thing for a different reason of feeling an imposter. I can never break that stigma of being the old Morales. Like that's still in me, right? I still feel that I'm that person.
Yeah.
But over the years, and just another piece of advice that somewhere along the lines I heard it is like, you're the average of the people that you're around, right? And I can't remember the number of people, but at a certain point,
I think it's 5. Like
a certain point in probably all of our lives, we decided to make those 5 people of a certain caliber of their integrity and their faith or their success or their expertise or their knowledge. And 20 years ago, I had a different 5. Today, I'm lucky enough to have people like you guys that are serving life with a purpose, that are impacting communities, impacting individuals' lives. And man, have made a lot of people a lot of money, and I look forward to making a lot of money with both of you in the very near future. So, guys, it's late. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's been nothing but a pleasure, and look forward to maybe having you on one of these days real soon again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
That'd be
Thank you.
Thanks, Ernest. Thank you, Kasaya.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.